Okay, good afternoon again. We're back, and now we're going to have John Mothner, he's the Design Standards Manager, and Patrick Overton, the Design Standards Engineer, and they're going to discuss the changes to chapters 4 and 10 of Volume 1 of the PPN, as well as Volume 2, Chapter 3, and the new Index 430.
Good afternoon. My name is John Mothner. I'm the Design Standards Manager for the Florida Department of Transportation. As previously noted, we're going to discuss some of the updates that we have. I'm just going to introduce a little bit of information. It's not a part of this presentation. We've recently completed a cable barrier study and a guardrail study, and we're going forward with management to make some implementation suggestions that we'd like to see enhanced on our systems, and that's going forward to management somewhere around the beginning of March, and those may result in changes to the design standards and or the plans preparation manual. So you'll be seeing those coming up in the very near future, and we'll discuss those things as they become available, and if we need to conduct any webinars on those issues, we'll conduct those at the time. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Patrick, and he'll take you through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thanks, John. Let me proceed to the next slide. There we go. Here's our agenda. We're going to go over the Design Bulletins, Index 430, Permanent Crash Cushions, PPM Volume 1, Chapter 4, PPM Volume 1, Chapter 10, and the Key Sheet Revisions. Now, the Design Bulletins. If you notice the link provided at the top, that'll take you directly to our Design Bulletins. You can download them and view them at any time. The first Design Bulletin is 1205. It's Crash Cushion Selection, Pay Items, and Index 430 Removal. Bulletin 1213 covered Crash Cushion Selection without extrapolation. And the latest one, 1301, covered new Index 430 and Exhibit SQ4. Now, this is Design Bulletin 1205. Again, removed Index 430 from the booklet. Clarified that extrapolating will not be allowed from now on. The crash cushion shall be a TL2 or TL3 system only. You'll notice in the language it refers to posted speed or design speed. Posted speed refers to work zone areas, which would be temporary crash cushion applications. Design speed refers to permanent application. This is one example of the pay items in Bulletin 12.5. Now, this is Design Bulletin 1213. You can visit our FDOT QPL site to see all revised manufacturer's drawings. Limitations were placed on products with no resubmission of their drawings. For those new to the QPL site, the permanent crash cushions are located under Spec 544, and the temporary crash cushions are located under Spec 102. End terminals, this is a side note, end terminals are located under Spec 536. And this is the latest Design Bulletin, 1301. It was largely due to response to a FHWA FAQ. Also, we released new Index 430. And we immediately inserted that into the Design Standards booklet. Here is the actual FHWA FAQ. This was pulled directly off their website. And it shows studies showing regardless of posted speed, due to most drivers braking before impact. That means there's no reason to have a 70-mile-per-hour crash cushion if the 85th percentile, which is shown in their research data, has it at 62.2 miles an hour. So they proven that the cost effectiveness of having a larger crash cushion was really useless, or
It's not warranted.
yeah, it's not warranted. Thank you, John. All right, Index 430. Removal of Index 430 from the 2012-2013 Design Standards e-booklet was due to designers/contractors not using it as intended. The information in the tables were outdated and limited the contractor to crash cushions listed in the tables. The reason for adding the index: to have a tool for designers and contractors that provides the minimum design length for a given design speed. Also, provide a plan and elevation view, typical for both guardrail and barrier wall applications with dimension labels. And here's sheet 1 of Index 430, and I've highlighted the general notes. I do want you guys to notice the two separate tables. One's for concrete barrier wall, the other is for guardrail applications, and we'll get into the different links in a moment. General notes. I want you guys to really take a look at Note 2 and Note 3. Note 2 reads, design length is based on a given design speed and the shortest crash cushion available on the qualified products list. Note 3 reads, for high-speed facilities with a design speed greater than 60 miles per hour, use a TL3 crash cushion. And Note 7, I also want to point out, for guardrail applications, construct the manufacturer's transition between the permanent crash cushion and the standard guardrail transition. Refer to all standard guardrail transition details of this index. Okay, this is sheet 2 of Index 430, and it shows the manufacturer's transition, what I was just speaking of. And I just want to reinforce that the transition is included in the design length of the shortest crash cushion option. And here's a blow up of that. All right, on to the permanent crash cushions. The drawings have been updated to match our Index 430. What we've included is a crash cushion data table, which I'll show an example of that later, a Thri-beam transition, and Exhibit SQ4. Sorry about that. Here's a crash cushion design table. And so what we did, we sent this to all the manufacturers so you guys could have, a consistent table that shows all the relevant data that you would need, designer or contractor. Some of the terms might be slightly different. Some manufacturer's drawings will have system width instead of unit width, but relatively the same thing. There's also one, this one shown is for permanent crash cushions. There's also one for temporary crash cushions as well. Now we're going into Chapter 4, the PPN revisions. Sand barrels are no longer an option for permanent crash cushion applications. Section revised to reflect the new requirements for using Index 430. Beginning with July 2012 lettings, the designer shall use pay items 544-75-140 crash cushion optional. Also, in Chapter 4, the designer shall no longer specify a particular brand of crash cushion. And also the changes supersede Roadway Design Bulletin 12-13. and we will continue. At the top, we've had some slight verbiage changes. Various types of energy absorbing devices used on department projects can be found on the QPL. And if you will, the next slide will show the highlighted portion. And the highlighted portion, this is the actual markup, and I will read to you the verbiage that is actually in the PPM currently. For permanent crash cushion applications, the designer shall indicate in the plans the location, station, and side, barrier system, concrete barrier wall or guardrail, design length, design speed, crash test level, hazard width, and all length restriction requirements for each to give locations. In accordance with Design Standard Index 430, see PPM Volume 2, Chapter 7, Exhibit SQ4. Now, this is the Exhibit SQ4. This is just an example, and we have filled out here the typical hazard widths that you would see. You see the first column's location, station, and that's just the station at the end of the barrier wall, or in case of a guardrail, it's at the end of the manufacturer's transition. So if you need to refer back to sheet 2 of Index 430, both of those are clearly shown. The next column that I want to bring up is the design length. And again, that comes from Note 2 off of Index 430, Sheet 1. And it reads, the design length is based on the given design speed and the shortest crash cushion available on the QPL. So if you just list out your design length in feet, you'll fill that one out with no problem. Design speed, fairly given. Crash test level, again, that's either TL2 or TL3. Hazard width, we have various widths given on this table. For example, single face guardrail is 15.25 inches. Double face guardrail, 24.5 inches. Full wall, barrier wall, is 24 inches. Length restriction is the next column. And this comes into where you would have a special application, such as a gore area, where your length that you could place the crash cushion would be restricted, such as a driveway opening, possibly. All right, on to Chapter 4. This is Section 4.5.2. I want to point out again that references were taken out regarding specific brands with corresponding pay items. And the highlighted portion deals with establishing the end of a barrier wall. And this section has been revised to read as follows. The crash cushion pay item is to be used in conjunction with the Design Standard Index 430. Again, 430 includes the design information for both concrete barrier wall and guardrail applications. In either case, establish the end of the barrier wall end of the barrier based on the design length of the shortest crash cushion for a given design speed. PPN Revisions, Volume 1, Chapter 4. This is 4.5.3. One thing I really want to point out here, a lot of it's just minor verbiage changes, but there was a note added. If you read in the middle of it there, curbs shall not be built in the approach area of a crash cushion. Now, this is the highlighted portion you just saw on the previous slide. And it deals with shielding wide hazards. Shielding wide hazards is a non-standard application, and crash cushion suppliers normally provide design assistance for their systems for these type of applications. And here we are, Chapter 4, Section 4.7. Minor verbiage changes again, and we inserted cable barrier here in the middle. And also, down here, the designer must document the following. FHWA, it changed from acceptance to federal aid reimbursement eligibility letter. They no longer have that verbiage of acceptance in there. They just say it's basically eligible for reimbursements. So this Chapter 10. Okay. Note the summary table in the middle here. One of the bigger differences between the permanent and the work zone. Work zone uses the posted speed, work zone speed, whereas permanent applications would use design speed. Also, to reinforce the designer not to specify a particular brand of crash cushion. The highlighted portion will be on the next slide. And the PPM has been revised to read as follows. 2 types of temporary crash cushions are used: redirective crash cushions and gating crash cushions. Redirective crash cushions will shield hazards by redirecting errant vehicles impacting the side of the crash cushion and decelerate errant vehicles from a direct inline impact at the terminus of the crash cushion by absorbing the energy. Gating crash cushions are non-redirective and are designed to decelerate errant vehicles from a direct inline impact at the terminus of the crash cushion by absorbing the energy. Gating crash cushions are appropriate on low-speed facilities and in work zones with higher speeds where only low impact angles hits are expected. An adequate clear runout area shall be provided beyond the gating crash cushion between the departure line and the clear zone. Sand barrel gating systems are no longer allowed. Now we move on to our key sheet revisions. I'd like to point out the highlighted area, and then you'll see the next slide. It's a list of the revised index drawings. So from now on, all revised index drawings should be put in a list on this cover sheet, or key sheet, excuse me. This is the overall sheet again. Highlighted is some minor verbiage changes we had. Here's a blow up of that area. And it was really just to include the 2013 design standards and the 2013 standard specifications for road and bridge construction. We just updated that. Here's our contact information. So all of our emails. Myself and John would handle Chapter 4. Any questions on Chapter 4 you might have. Permanent crash cushions. Izelle will be glad to answer anything on Chapter 10 or work zone questions. That concludes our presentation, unless you have something you want to add. Or...
Okay, we're gonna see what questions came through, and we'll see in a minute. So if you can bear with us for a minute, so we can answer the questions that are coming through.
Okay, John, I have a question here that says, where do we specify the orientation angle of the crash cushions, especially where you have a curved main line and a curved ramp? There's no column for this in the table. Does the EOR set this, or does crash cushion manufacturer?
For a curved alignment, the crash cushion is always tangent to, which would make it parallel to the alignment.
Okay, thank you.